Yeah, well, thank you for coming. I did get an interest in the Old Spanish Trail at a very early stage. We moved to Cedar City in 1970. I taught mathematics at Southern Utah University. You'd probably say, what's that got to do with the Spanish Trail? And the answer is not much, but we had a neighbor. Well, he was a little ways away, but he was pretty close. Alva Matheson. Alva was in his 80s when I first met him. He lived into his 90s. I think he may have been 75, closer to our age, I guess, when I first met him. But he showed me some places on the Spanish Trail west of town. I'll actually show you one that fascinated him. And then he recovered quite a few what I call artifacts. And I don't have pictures, but I do. That's probably why I got interested. He found a stone with a cross in about just a little smaller than this, brownish in color with a cross in it. It was a gorgeous piece. If you get into, well, I'll remember the museum when I get there, because I got it on the list. Okay, if you get to that museum, and I'll mention it, it was there the last time I knew. Anyway, it's become very popular in the last few years for the clubs, chapters. Utah is 5 chapters in the Old Spanish Trail Association, so that gives you some idea of interest, because we got, there's a big section of Utah that's covered, and so there's several chapters. I think California has one, to give you some kind of an idea. They should have more with population, but places like Colorado, I think there's one also. So when you're talking 5 chapters, I think there's only 15 or 16 total. In other words, smaller group organizations. This has become very popular in Utah, and I haven't seen any of these in the other places, but this one's near Green River. They are just metal statues, and you can see the holes in the metal if you look there. Right there. You can actually see through the metal. But there's one in Parowan that you can see if you're coming down Old Highway 91, just before you get into Summit off in the field at the right. If you're on your way to, the East Fork of the Sevier River, there's a couple in that area. There's some up by Fish Lake. So.
Who put them in?
The chapters. The chapters raised money or got some kind of grant and were able to put them in. And so they've been putting these in. As I say, this is the Book Cliffs, just as you're coming in on the east side of Green River, Utah. So, yes?
The ones in this area, you might mention Al Matheson's been installed.
Yeah, that's what I say. There's one in Parowan that I know. There was some done by the Fish Lake National Forest on the Fish Lake route, which, by the way, hasn't been recognized as an official part of the route, but there's absolutely no question it was part of the Spanish Trail. And I'll have a little more to say about that later. Well, let's go on, and some of this is a little bit of review, but as we've mentioned, the Old Spanish Trail is the 16th of the National Historic Trails. That's what NHT stands for. There are 19 of them. I've listed about 10, I guess. They're actually having a celebration on this one right now. Yesterday, I think, was the day that they walked across the bridge in Alabama to do their special recognition. Santa Fe Trail has a lot to do with the Spanish Trail, because it's the trail that goes from the center of the United States down to Santa Fe, and then from Santa Fe it goes south And I didn't list any of those. There's a couple of the National Historic Trails that go south into Mexico, and then the Old Spanish Trail comes west into Utah. The northern route, these here, Mormon, California, Oregon, Pony Express, and let's see, there's one, those four are featured all together in Wyoming. There's a great, by the way, there's a great museum in Wyoming on the National Historic Trails, and particularly these four in, who knows the town? Well, let's go on, all right? I'll think of it when I go. It's amazing what you forget after so much time. Connected with those National Historic Trails are several National Scenic Trails. Some of these are actual trails and routes. My favorite, and the only one that I really have had very much to do with, is the Natchez Trace. And it is an actual road from early American explorers into the southern states. They went down the Natchez, they went down the Mississippi River, Ohio and Illinois River, and down the Mississippi into Louisiana. And then they settled. If they didn't like it, they left and went back. I had family actually that went south down the river, and then two of the three brothers, my third great grandfather stayed in Mississippi to keep hold of the land, and the other brothers took the Natchez Trace, which is the land route back to New England and back up the river, Pennsylvania and places like that. Some of you may have been on some of those, but they all came about at the same time. In fact, we just had the 50th anniversary in, I think, 2016 of the National Historic Trails Act came then. Now, founders of the Old Spanish Trail, I've listed 5 people that are really important. Of course, the first one, and you're well aware of this one, is Demise and Escalante, came in 1776. And they were featured significantly in 1976, which is another reason why I was a little involved, because they were, I mean, if you think about the Four Corner States, what were they doing in 1976 for the sesquicentennial of the United States? I mean, back east, they had everything. You know, they had ships and wars and you know, bridges to build to reenact the Revolutionary War, all kinds of things to do in the east. But the further west you got, you're stretching, because those places, the Four Corner States, didn't exist. So what do they do to celebrate the bicentennial of the country? They chose to mark the trail. So they went from Santa Fe north to into Colorado and across to Moab. Well, no, further north. They went way north up into northern Colorado and across where the Dinosaur National Monument is, and then west to down into Utah County, and then south through our country here in this, in especially Iron County and Washington County. They came south, and then they were headed, they decided not to go west, because west meant snowy mountains, and they had no prospect. It was getting late in the year, I mean, like November, when they were in central Utah, south of Provo. And so they were looking for a way to get back to Santa Fe. So they headed south. They actually, you have a very significant place that we know for sure, and that's the, well, where all the creeks come together over in Hurricane, where the Virgin River and the Ash Creek, and what's the other one? Oh, and La Verkin Creek come together. Actually, Lavercan Creek and Ash Creek come into the Virgin at right angles like this. If the table is the Virgin, the two of them are about less than a quarter mile apart, and they go straight in. If you've not been down to the new park in Hurricane to see that, you ought to, because that's a very historic place, and especially historic for Dominguez and Escalante. I might just say one more thing. You probably wonder, how did they miss the honeymoon trail to go east, which would have been the natural place? The problem is they were coming down on Sand Mountain, or down the road, basically where the road is today, towards the honeymoon trail, and they saw some Indians, and they started following them. I don't know that the Indians didn't lead them off in that direction, but they went over on Sand Mountain and ended up over on the cliffs above where Fort Pierce is on Armijo's route. Although this is way before Armijo. As you can see, it's 53 years before Armijo goes through this country. And so they were headed south, and they didn't notice, they just saw big cliffs. And they'd seen the cliffs in Hurricane, and they just said, well, we're not going to get that. Then they started going south till they found a place to get back up over the Hurricane cliffs. Garces did most of his work across Arizona, but the difficulty there was Indians and water, there were a lot of wild Indian tribes that didn't want them there. Now, Jedediah Smith is the other one. We have an actual inscription, probably from one of Jedediah Smith's group that's here in Washington County, down on where the Maverick is, just west of the car dealerships. Behind it on the cliffs. It's very, I think I have a picture of it. Then of course we've been talking all along about Armijo. By the way, you notice Smith came twice. First time he went down the Virgin River Gorge, and then he made it very clear for everyone else, anywhere, don't go down the what? Don't go down the gorge. It's not a good place to go. And so Armijo's group, which came in shortly afterward, and I'm not sure that there wasn't some communication between at least some men in one or the other of the two groups. I mean, he came down twice. There's a lot of men, probably 100 men that have been in this area, maybe several hundred by that time. There's more than just those men too. Then Armijo, and then of course the northern route, the main route, was established by Wolfskill and Yount in 1831. When they saw how lucratively and productive the Spanish Trail trade business is, they thought that's a good thing. So they did that. Now you had a question.
No, a comment.
Comment, fire away.
My father was born in 1876
Okay.
in Fountain Green, Utah.
Okay. Yeah. So, and you were born in 1976, right?
Not quite.
Not quite. Okay. All right. Well, that's good. Yeah, Fountain Green was, but you're talking early Utah there. So anyway, I just wanted to mention those people. There's some good monuments, Dominguez Escalante monuments, in a very good one in Hurricane. There's one in just as you get across the border over there south of Kanab at Fredonia, where the free women come, or free women, or freedom for women. Here are the main things again on this trade trail, and this is what started it. We haven't mentioned this a lot, but Armijo brought woolen goods, and he was able to trade for mules and horses, and it was a big trade. I mean, they made they could make lots of money with the horses and mules coming back. The other thing that we haven't hardly talked about is this one, Indian slaves. There was a tremendous amount of slavery on the Old Spanish Trail. Southern California had quite a few, and they've talked some about that, but they had ability to get away a little easier and go. But the one tribe that was the Shivwits Indians, and it decimated what disease hadn't already killed those Indians with. The Spanish Trail took another major chunk out of their population, and it's taken years and years and years to get back to what you'd call anything going again. They weren't even the Shivwits weren't even recognized as a tribe again until 1970 or 71, something like that. They have a celebration every year in Cedar City for that. Now, the other thing that you have on the Spanish Trail is horse thieves. The Ute Indians came down into California, and they didn't hesitate to steal horses. I mean, they're just as valuable as Indians, maybe more. So they would steal horses and bring them back north, sell them. So it was used a lot. Now, you're not going to get a good horse thief writing a nice journal about all that he did. So we unfortunately don't have that. Now, the other thing we'll see is you actually have some immigration, and we'll see some of that. But so remember those are the upper part is the main trade, why they're trading, and this is why Armijo, this is why Armijo is so important, because he's the first to do it. Now, he didn't pick the best way to get there, but he was the first to do it. Now, and the Old Spanish Trail Association now, which was reorganized in the early 1990s, wasn't the first attempt to organize recognition of the trail. William R. Palmer in Cedar City, and you see I had some connections in Cedar City. I knew Palmer family, but I read a lot about William R. Palmer. They have a Palmer room in the library and all kinds of things. He wrote a lot of things about it, but he also made an attempt to recognize where the trail went. Some of you may have seen some of these monuments. This is the best preserved one, I think, that still exists, and it's at west of Cedar City at Newcastle. Thank you. At Newcastle. And just as you're driving into Newcastle on the highway west from Cedar City, if you're Newcastle and you're going east to Cedar City, it's just as you're leaving town. It's right on the edge of town. And you'll notice it was 1800, 1850. William R. Palmer organized a group to sort of do the trail, and mainly then they were talking not Armijo. Armijo wasn't even part of it. Armijo's across here. The Old Spanish, the main trail is that one, going up through Utah. So you see the arch. Now, the other route we'll talk a little bit about because it got recognized, and I'll tell you why it was recognized too. But this was a one-day event. New Mexico, Colorado, Utah. I don't think Arizona may have had just a little, yes, down to Mesquite and those areas. Arizona and California. He organized individual groups, historical groups in the various cities and places, and then asked them to, they had a pattern for this, and he actually got them to buy one and then put it up on a special day. And they picked one day, and don't ask me what the day is because I didn't look that up before I came here. But they were all put in one day. Iron County, of course, got 3 or 4. When I first went there, there was one on the old county courthouse building in Parowan. There's one in Scenic, one in Summit, and this one in Newcastle. So Well, the route, I will just say this. I have written an article about this. It was an Indian Trail to Mexican Trail, I guess, originally. And then Mexican Trail to Mormon Road. And then Mormon Road to Modern Highway. And any of you who, well, I signed one of them, so I know some of it are aware of. He's made mention of it. That's the routes that I basically cover in this. Interstate 70, Interstate 15, and then the highways that parallel those two. And 191 going north and south through Moab. But you can actually, you do not veer too far off. The one exception, of course, is Armijo. Armijo was not where the highway went across the 37th parallel from here to Four Corners. If you're driving to Four Corners, you know the highways you'd follow. You're nearly always south of wherever the trail is if you do that, except here in Utah and a little bit of Arizona there around Pipe Spring. So they actually did follow. Frankly, it's very obvious if you do it. It's the only way, I mean, think about it. We still do it. If you go south from Salt Lake City, let's get south of Nephi. When can you cross the mountains to the east if you're on Interstate 15? Tell me the places. Salina Canyon, the one at Cove Fort. There's one, and they use that. Where's the next one? Bear Valley, right. Bear Valley the highway was built in 1950, by the way, or thereabouts. There may have been some other primitive roads before. And then the next one is Highway 14 going over from Cedar City, again built in the the road was built in the 1920s. I don't think they oiled it until later. Then you got to go how far south again to get across all of this? The one that goes through Zion National Park. Think about that. There's only 4 places, and think about the topography that you have in those places. None of them are simple. None of them are simple. They're all complicated. So, but the trails were there before. Anyway, now I should just say, how come we don't have a Spanish Trail anymore? Well, I guess there's a lot of time that's passed, but there were 3 principal reasons why the government said 1848 is the end of the line for the Spanish Trail, because that's when the U.S.-Mexican War, 46 to 48, when we won, we said, well, we've got it all. The other major thing was the Mormon immigration into the Great Basin. From 1847 on, never stopped. Still isn't. Half of you are here because of that, probably. You're still immigrating to Utah, just in a different time period, different way. And then, of course, the third reason why this traffic quit is the California gold rush. All right, they needed more supplies than a couple of hundred horses could bring them from Santa Fe to Los Angeles in 1849. So that's when you see the big ships coming and you're getting massive immigration across the country. And they're starting to talk about railroads. It takes a few years for that. But this stuff quits. Those are the reasons why the Spanish Trail ends up disappearing. Now, the northern branch, the northern branch is I-70. As I said, if you remember that northern route, the northern route went from Santa Fe north up to Grand Junction and then across to Moab. So that's the route. Notice the route that the main route goes like this arch here. This one goes across. If you see any picture, Google it, whatever, you'll realize the northern route is not a good way to load your horses up with woolen goods and head that way. Do you understand that? It's not a economical way to do it. So there has to be other reasons. And the main reasons that you have a northern route is the fur trappers. Jedediah Smith, of course, had something to do with that, and others, but you had a fur trade coming from northern Utah, Uinta, those places, and you needed trails through there. So they were there, and there were people who did it. I mean, let's face it, if you leave Grand Junction, it isn't a difficult trip going straight west to Moab, except for what's your biggest problem? You've all driven I-70 to Grand Junction. How many? Is there anyone not been driven from Grand Junction to Moab? I didn't think so. What is it? Flat. All right. What's the big missing object? Water. And in fact, there, Seagull Canyon is one of my favorite places, and I highly, highly recommend that you stop and see it on your next trip to Colorado or coming back. I wouldn't do it this time of year with the rain and the snow, and you'll get stuck. But Seagull Canyon is, and the John Wesley Powell Museum also in Green River. They're the only two things I could even recommend. Oh, there's a visitor center too, yes.
I was going to make a comment. This east of Castledale, up in the San Rafael Desert, there's 2 or 3 markers that say Spanish Trail.
Yeah. Now that's
a long ways from I-70.
Yeah, I will. I'll make some comment on that, because if you get to Green River, no one went straight west on where I-70 goes. The canyons are too deep. It's impossible to cross. Some of them, the highway wasn't even surveyed until the 1970s, and it was completed about 1975-ish. I mean, we're talking our lifetime. So it was not the route. And it's because of the San Rafael swell just destroys it. You know, you can't get across that country. That's why, even if you go south, I mean, think about how to get west from south of Green River. How do you get into Utah? Think about every route that you've ever taken from Colorado or eastern Utah to here. None of those existed as major route until the 1970s. All right? They're all very, very modern. It's rough country. Now, there's no water, but the reason why I like Seagull Canyon is it's got, and I just took their official brochure. It's at exit, you don't have to buy this to do it. It's at exit 187, Thompson Springs. There's a little place called Thompson Springs. Sometimes if you're there, you see the water running in the road. It's a spring. There's water everywhere at Thompson Springs. And that canyon used to carry a lot of water. Everyone who took that northern route, the very north route, would stop at that canyon in Thompson Springs. But the Indian glyphs there are the best that I can say to visit in one place. There's at least 3 major generations of Indian glyphs to see. I mean, the archaic ones, some of them nearly 10,000 years old, at least 4,000 years old. Some of them are the Fremont Indian glyphs, which are a little closer, 1,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago, as well as the modern Shivwits and others. that are there. It's a wonderful place to go visit. If you don't, even if you don't care about the Spanish Trail, go see it. I guarantee it's worth it. And you can drive up to, it's actually an oiled road. I wouldn't do it in a storm though. And I have driven it in my automobile. It's, you know, it's very narrow, but it is oiled and it's easy to go in. You've been there. You agree with me? Oh, yeah. All the way to it. How many have anyone else seen it?
They've taken the graffiti, most of the graffiti out of there now too.
Okay, yeah.
Is that in Thompson, Utah?
Yeah.
Yes, Thompson, Utah. When you're going to Moab, instead of going down to Moab, keep going west another 15 miles and then turn north. It's only 4 or 5 miles north of the highway, of I-15.
Yeah, I-70 and the trains go right through there too.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, you agree with me. It's worth any amount of time you go to spend there. Yeah.
Going over just for that.
Yeah, I would say that too. It's worth going over just to see it. Even if you do nothing else, it's worth driving that extra 20 or 30 miles that you drive over and back.
And it's only about 3 miles out of Johnson Spring.
Yeah, it's not very far. There's also an inscription out in the flat, and I don't have a picture of that shows that there were people who were traveling that route with wagons and other things. And it's a pretty good route for wagons. It's flat and straight, but as I say, a storm ruins your day in the worst way, because you know it's terrible country to be in. But you know the water is the real difficulty. And there's only, as far as I know, there's only a few springs, and the Thompson Springs is the best between Grand Junction. It's about halfway between Grand Junction and maybe it's a little closer to Green River, but it's worth seeing. Enough said on that. Now, Armijo, I had this in here because I had this presentation before, but these are the places that you can stop and see on the Armijo route. And some of those are really very, very worthwhile. The Church Rock over by Cayenne. Four Corners is worthwhile just because it's a unique place. It actually probably isn't, and actually the spot isn't actually, I guess it is now, the official, you can be in 4 states because if you look at it should be at the 37th parallel. I think it's 36 degrees, 59 minutes and 22 seconds or something like that. It's off by, probably 300 or 400 feet or a quarter mile anyway from where it should be. But the monument itself is interesting. They charge you though. Church Rock you can stop and see for free. When you're in Cayenta, stop and see the Navajo Indian the World War II exhibit in the what is it? A Burger King. I was thinking McDonald's, but there's a Burger King, and it has a great exhibit about the Navajo Indians. And so stop in Cayenta. There's a few places to eat too. I've had a pretty good Navajo taco there. Navajo National Monument is on the way, and it's very close to where. If you drive up to Navajo National Monument, you're actually driving very close to where the Armijo route went. And then you know about these in Page, the Glen Canyon Dam. The Grand Staircase now has major museums in Big Water and Kanab. Pipe Spring has a little exhibit. I think it's the only place that has an exhibit. I'm not sure about Southern California, but it's the only place that has some things that talk about the slavery question at Pipe Spring. So you should be aware of that. And then go see the Honeymoon Trail. That's an afternoon for you to drive. You can drive in. You could drive there in your car, but I wouldn't. We drive our truck, pickup truck, 2-wheel drive, and get there easily. Warner Valley the same way. That's Church Rock.
Oh, yeah.
So And there's probably no question that Armijo and his group camped there in late October, early November of 1829. So they got here and had a reconnaissance, and there's a LK, and I think that's a 6. So this is probably Jedediah Smith's work. This is the one by the Maverick, behind the Maverick on the hill here in St. George. So it's very easy to get to. It couldn't be from more than from here to the back of the room distance from the road. Maybe a few more feet. But
Is that 1820 something?
to 1826 is the way. This is a pretty good picture. I'm pretty sure it's a 6. And it's LK, and we have not identified an LK. But again, I was trying to let you know, Jedediah Smith had people here in 1826 and 27, and who knows how many came afterwards or whatever, because he, of course, was exploring to see if he could find some more fur trapping. All right. Oh, and maybe I should just say before we leave that far northern route and Armijo, one of the reasons why I still like my Colorado friends is they're the ones who had the muscle and political power to actually create the legislation that created the National Historic Trail. Without them, there wouldn't have been a National Historic Trail. I'm positive of that. Even though, in my mind, they're mostly a fur trapping route. All right, and the relationship there.
Steve?
Yes.
Before you go, how long ago were you made aware of that petroglyph, that inscription?
Oh, the last one?
Yeah, the last one.
This one? Oh, you're talking about the one here in St. George?
Right.
Yeah, see, I can't authenticate it.
Yeah.
So, but it was, who was it that told me? Bart Anderson mentioned it to me.
The only reason I'm looking at the script and it looks modern to me,
Okay, and that could be.
you have to be really careful because
Yeah.
there's a lot of people out there carving on rocks and they make it look like the old stuff.
Yeah, the worst one I will tell you is up towards Dameron Valley, just before you go past the volcano and up on the flat. There's not Fremont. Anyway, his signature's there, 1869. Kit Carson, 1869. The only problem is if you go over to New Mexico and stop and visit the cemetery, Kit Carson died in 1868. So there's a pretty bad inscription. All right? I don't know that it's true, and it may, but it's been there for quite a while. Okay, the main route. Now remember that main route it goes from Santa Fe up to the not to Four Corners. It actually goes north of there, Durango, then west of Durango over to Green River. Not Green River. It doesn't hit Green River until after it comes west into Utah in the bean fields, and then north along the mountains to Moab, and then it has to cross that desert that we talked about, the I-70 stuff between Moab and Green River, and they took the shortcut. They don't do the right angle one we do on the road because we build a nice highway. But there is a road, and you can take it if you got a pickup truck or something. You could drive that, and it's pretty nice. You get a feel for where it was.
How close to Grand Junction did that come?
Grand Junction, it didn't come close to Grand Junction because it went to Moab and then northwest of Moab.
You come in through Monticello?
Yes, it doesn't go through Monticello. It cuts across the area to the east and north of Monticello. Yeah, there's some nice areas there, and you get a good feel of it. And they describe those big potholes, and other things in that area. There's probably no question that it went through that area. Anyway, the Casa Colorado Dome is like one that they describe. In Moab itself, there's some very good historic trail sites, 3 or 4. There's a park on the south end of town that's called, I think, the Spanish Trail Park. There's a park right at the river. There's a couple of very nice museums. Moab has a lot of stuff on the historic Spanish Trail. The museum, that's the one I was trying to think of. I was telling you about the rock with the cross. It was a cross, and then there was a hole drilled in this, a beautiful rock. And I don't know what Alba Matheson, his son left that at the museum, at the Museum of San Rafael at the Circle Cliffs. Now, the reason why I've got, well, let's describe it now in Utah so you know where we're talking. In Utah, you almost do a straight line, and then I was going to make one from from Moab to Green River, or vice versa. How do you keep track of where you are in that country? Anyone have any idea? The mountains. What's the big mountain? La Salle's. They're visible, even when you come on that northern route, the very northern route coming into Utah from from Grand Junction on that fur trapper route. The mountain just tells you where you are, and where you're going. And then I showed you a picture of the Book Cliffs. The Book Cliffs say don't go north, and the mountain says this is where you're at. And if you do that a few times, you know exactly where you are. If you just pay attention to where the mountain is. The La Salle Mountains just stick up out of the whole thing all the way through there. And notice it next time you go over to the national parks over in the Moab area. Now, from when they get to Moab and Green River, then they cross at Green River and stop and see the museum. They got it outside. You don't have to even be there on time. You can go late and you still get all of the old Spanish Trail stuffs out in the canopy area where they have pictures and descriptions of all of the things you can see on the Spanish Trail in the area. From Green River, the interstate goes straight west into the swell, the San Rafael Swell, which may still make it to be a national monument someday. There are places there they should make a national monument out of. There's nothing better in the East or other places that I know, or California for that matter. It's a spectacular place. So I'm still surprised that that's not, at least a piece of it's not a national monument. It's worth seeing, just that. But instead, take the road that goes towards Price, and you'll probably have to check with the museum people there, Grand County, or not Grand County, Emery County, and get a map or a place that'll tell you exactly where to turn. But you can, once you go north about 15 miles, then the Spanish Trail went west across those hills there. And it's very good. It's really worth going to see, and there are quite a few markers after you get into that area. And it goes straight over to Castle Dale. So if you look at a Utah map, go north towards Price and look and see where the dirt roads go west to Castle Dale. That's where the Spanish Trail went.
There's a park out there now.
Yeah, there is, and I haven't been there for a couple of years, so I can't tell you what it looks like right now.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a pretty good road the last time I went across it. Now, you have to, it doesn't come straight across because there's a railroad that comes down from Price down and goes east toward Grand Junction, and you have to stay, they keep you on one side of the road, of the railroad, so there's only one place to cross the railroad safely, and where there's a decent road. Then from Castle Dale, it goes south, right back down to I-70, and I think the first exit west of the junction when you come from Castledale down to I-70, it goes to Red Creek, and the Red Creek Trail kiosk, I'll show you a picture of that. I've got a picture right here. Then it goes, there's two things you can do at that stage, and actually you could do it both. I would definitely do, if you have time, go up Salina Canyon so you see that version of it, and then go take the road over to Loa and Bicknell that way so that you can see where the trail goes past Fish Lake. And the Fish Lake National Park or National Forest has really marked that area well, and they've made a very strong argument, and I'm completely convinced that it was the route that they took, not the one going west. It was the route when they came back. Why do you think? There are two reasons why when you're going west from Santa Fe. You leave in the spring and you come up, and let's talk about the critical things you got to cross the Green River. No matter which one you take, you've got to cross the Green River and the Colorado. And there's two things, that's why you need to be there early, before the snow melts. So that's crucial. But if you cross the Colorado, say, and the Green River before the snow melts, and you can do that reasonably most of the time. Sometimes you have to wait a while. You might get a little storm like we had last night or the night before, and you have to wait 5 days at the river before you can cross. And that does happen. By the way, when you're in Green River, you can actually go to the site. They pretty well picked the place where they actually crossed. It's just north of town on the east side of the Green River. They got a place you can go up and actually see where, get a feel for where they crossed the Green. You got to get there before the big rush of water. Now, when you come over to Castledale, that won't be a big problem, and back down to, usually then you hit the Salina Canyon, the head of Salina Canyon, you come down Salina Canyon. You don't take the Fish Lake route in May. Why? It's snowed in. I don't know, I've tried it a few times. You can't get through, you can't even get to Fish Lake from the east side.
Can now, they keep it plowed.
Do they keep it plowed from Loa? But they don't, the upper route from the reservoirs. There's a place you can come in.
The back road goes down and go one way to the main lake place, and then you take the right road. They keep that plowed pretty good.
Okay, well, they're doing a little better, but the last time I was there, I couldn't get through. So I had to go clear down to Loa and around and back up to Fish Lake if I wanted to do it. But it wasn't a reasonable way to go in May, or even sometimes in early June. So they'd go down Salina Canyon and then head the rest of the trip to California. When they came back in the fall, though, to get the next load to bring the horses back to Sal, then they went through Fish Lake, because September, even October, you don't have the snow. Fishing is wonderful at Fish Lake. There's all kinds of good reasons to go through, to take the Fish Lake cutoff. And they did. There are remnants that really show that. By the way, there's a bunch of silhouettes on the Fish Lake route if you're close to Fish Lake or going into it. Now I mentioned one more on the main route, and this is Jedediah Smith. He chose early on to go, when he made his first crossing from the east side to the west side of the Wasatch Front, basically. He went up up Clear Creek to where the state park is now. What's the state park? Fremont Indian State Park. Okay, if you take the old road, the old highway going through, there's a place to stop. There's a really nice Jedediah Smith. Have any of you been to that? Yeah, with metal horses and everything. So it's a very nice one. But here, did I get that? We are stuck, or let me see.
Spacebar? Spacebar.
Oh, there it is. Okay, at the Fish Lake Cutoff, this is just one of the signs, but there's a really nice sign there of the historic trail. Whoop. Now it says I want to go back. Well, maybe I better quit talking and keep going. There are some nice sites in Iron County. Oh, there's one of them, and see, it's really delayed. It's picking them up. I got to go back one there. Am I going the wrong way here? I'm sorry about this. This is not my. That's why I don't like computers. I want to go back. We're going through it too fast. I probably hit something to go forward, and I need to go back. Yeah, we're going forward. This is the Iron County sites.
It's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere. Can you go back?
It's frozen.
No, it's going forward. Yeah, I feel badly about that because I was going to try to tell you about a couple things.
Somewhere it must have hit time something.
I must hit a timer, huh?
Yeah, it looks like it's going automatically.
Yeah, is there any way to stop it and start all over? And then I better hurry. All right?
Where do you want to go?
Well, go down. Oh, I was going to say go down to the slide. Slide down. I could tell you which slide. Anyway, Iron County has a few really nice inscriptions. There's 1849. I wish I had time to talk about John Fremont and the mistake he made in 1846. Go down. Go up one more slide.
Well, let's back out and see if we can start over again. Somehow it's
Okay.
doing all that.
Anyway, this slide is a really important one. That's an 1831, and it looks like TW. And if you remember the W, I don't think it's a T. I'll tell you what I think it is. His name was William Wolfskill. I mentioned him in the very beginning. William Wolfskill was an American who went to Santa Fe and married into the Spanish group and wanted to be a Spanish, he was a Spanish citizen. A Mexican citizen. We go through them real quick now. If you, it's frozen. Okay. Wolfskill's signature is in the rocks. Now, the reason why I say it, when he was in Santa Fe, he went by the name of Jose, Jose, all the time. His name, all the documents indicate it's Hosea. When I was looking at the D. Julien, have you heard of D. Julien, Demise Julien, the French explorer? Julien is Julien, but the J is an I. They put an I with a little slash. It looks like an I when you actually see it. And he wrote it that way many times on the famous inscriptions. There's a half a dozen or more in Utah. The D. Julien one. I think the T is an I. Okay, I don't know if you got a chance to see it. That T is Jose Wolfskill, 1831, and I think it's authentic. All right, it's been well, that's one that Alva Matheson, old Alva Matheson, told me about when I first went in the 70s. I didn't get to see it till about 10 years later. He didn't show me because he wasn't able to walk back up into that country to see it. But it's east of, well, it's a little south and then east of Summit. And you can drive almost to it. You're within a quarter mile of seeing that if you want to see it.
Really hard to find.
It's very hard to find. You probably need to have somebody show you, or you look a lot. I had someone show me the first time, and then every time I've been back, this is the signature, 1831. And I think it's Jose Wolfskill, 1831.
I think you're back in business. You want-
Okay.
or you want me to back up?
Yeah, back up a couple. I'll do it real quick, and then let me do them. Let's see.
Okay.
Let's see if this.
I think,
Okay, the monument, the Braffett's Canyon City. Oh, yeah, this one. This is one that I said, oh, if you're going to make a mistake, or you were faking this one, William Knight, 1842, you really is stupid. Okay, because if you read anything about the people that went on the Spanish Trail and you see William Knight's name, it always shows him going down in 1841. And you say, oh, a fake. That's what my brain said immediately, until I read deeper, and then fairly recently, a whole bunch of information's come out about William Knight going down to California, Knight's Landing, and all. He's early gold rush if you get into California. He came back in 1842 to sell his alcohol business and bring his family and his wife and everybody back to California in 1842. And I know exactly what he was doing. He said, well, we can't go any further today. I think I'll write my name in the rock. Okay? And so William Knight actually did it. And this one's just east up Little Creek. It's called Little Creek at, man, I'm awful. Paraguna. Go to Paraguna, take the canyon like you're going. By the way, if you want to go on the real trail, take that canyon from Paraguna, not the one that goes to the reservoirs, but the one that goes up Little Creek, and travel back over to the highway that goes back to Bear Valley, the Bear Valley Highway. Then you're on, by the way, you're on Spanish Trail the entire time. Okay, you can see the erosions, you can see everything in that canyon. And it's easy to ride too. You could do it in a car. I do it in a rental though. Okay? So, but there are many of them. I mentioned Braffett's Canyon, Johnson Fort. There's the Braffett's Canyon, William Wolfskill. I could be wrong. There's a beautiful spring at Johnson's Fort, or north of Cedar City. But the guy came out there and built his house right on top of it. So sorry about that. Iron Springs, great springs and lots of things there. Antelopes. Oh, here's the one. This is one Alva Matheson showed me early on. This is what got him interested. He said, Dad, how come that it looks like it's been tramped to death? And his dad told him, he says, oh, you know, he's quite a bit older than me, and he goes back to his dad almost goes back to Spanish Trail days. He says, that's the Spanish Trail. They used to drive horses over that all the time. And the remnant of that erosion in the Iron Springs area is still very evident. This is at Iron Springs. We mentioned the William R. Palmer Monument. This is a really important thing if you're a big 49er fan, 1849er, and you want to know about Jefferson Hunt. There's a whole bunch of stuff there that tells you why Hunt did what he did, and I won't go into that story, but that's a very fascinating story. And it's a nice monument. It's right on the trail, though. In fact, there's the trail. This is Holt Canyon. I've lived in Cedar City for over 30 years, 39 years almost, and I never saw Holt Canyon without water, ever. And this is Spanish Trail. You can see the route. It's very evident, and that's very close to you. If you'd go to Enterprise and go up Holt Canyon or those areas. I should make one or two more comments. Go to Mountain Meadows. There's some beautiful historic monuments there. Mostly, well, 90%, 99% of them are about the massacre at Mountain Meadows. There's now 4 areas you can go visit. It's changed since I first went there. But Mountain Meadows, I wanted to say this about Mountain Meadows. Mountain Meadows was absolutely crucial, essential for the Spanish Trail. And the reason why is once you get past Mountain Meadows, what's south of Mountain Meadows? Tell me what you remember driving down the road from Enterprise. Or what do you see? Some creeks, the country gets rough. Then you used to take the road that went over Utah Hill, right? That's the Spanish Trail. And then what? Desert till Las Vegas. Desert till Las Vegas. Yeah, if you're going to take 100 horses and some sheep or whatever else you're going to take, what do you got to do before you ever hit that desert? Feed them, water them, load them down with everything you can. Best place? Mountain Meadows. Mountain Meadows. And sometimes, we don't see it as often now, but I've seen Mountain Meadows just look absolutely spectacularly beautiful with green grass. It should be this year with all the rain. We should have a beautiful view of Mountain Meadows. What I think of was Mountain Meadows. And the same thing when you come off of the desert going back the other way. What do? You've gone 2 weeks or 3 weeks from Las Vegas, I don't know how far that is, 140 miles, 150 miles. Your horses and your cattle, everything's pretty what? Pretty dry. All right, Mormons found that early with Jefferson Hunt. Half of them died. 3/4 of the cattle they brought back from California to Utah in 1848 died because they couldn't make it across the desert. But as soon as you get off that desert, where do you go? Mountain Meadows. And you drink it up. All right? And
It had a different name, didn't it?
well, yes, but it was called Mountain Meadows pretty early. And you understand, if you're trying to understand why in the world would those people stay out there in Mountain Meadows and then get shot up? It's because they had no choice. When you get to Mountain Meadows, you have to stop. You absolutely have to stop and prepare for what's going to come in the next few weeks. It's absolutely significant. Camp Spring, I could probably give you the GPS for Camp Spring, but I won't. But if you want to know where it is exactly, I can basically tell you. But it's in the heart of the Shivwits Indian Reservation out there west, and they don't like people there anymore, I noticed. So, but it's fun. Utah Hill, I think I got, well, here. That's me. This is one of the memorials, and there is a little bit about the Spanish Trail at this memorial, which was put in. This was I was young and good looking once, wasn't I? Okay. That was an interesting thing. I could just go on about Mountain Meadows, and especially the things that have happened in the last 20 years or so. This is what like I was telling you, after you leave Mountain Meadows, and one more day after Mountain Meadows, 2 days after Mountain Meadows, that's what you got, till you get to Las Vegas. Yeah. That's the story. Oh, I got to the end. All right, I'm supposed to give a pitch to join the Old Spanish Trail Association if you want, but I won't. But you can do it online if you really are interested in the Old Spanish Trail. Questions?
Yeah, why didn't they follow down the Virgin River once they got past Mountain Meadows? Is that out of the way?
Yeah, you have to come back to St. George to do that.
Well, no, I mean, once they go through Mountain Meadows, you're heading into Nevada. Couldn't they cut down to the Virgin River and follow it?
You can, but Jedediah Smith said you don't want to do that ever. And John D. Lee did it in 1854 because he thought the same thing. Oh, we'll just go down the river. Yeah. And John D. Lee says they'll never build a road down the Virgin River Gorge. He says it's one of the worst experiences of my life was to go down he actually went all the way down through it. Quicksand, cliffs. I mean, it's amazing what you can do if you've got a lot of dynamite and equipment. Have you saw the film on construction of the Virgin River Gorge?
Yeah.
Okay, that was no picnic. That took them 10 years.
Yeah, but the Virgin River Gorge isn't part of the trail that they took from Mountain Meadows to Las Vegas or that area.
No, they went down. They went down the creek. They went down Santa Clara River, over the Utah Hill, down to the bottom of the Virgin. Yeah, they got down to the Virgin, and then they went along the Virgin till they got quite a ways down. Then they went up the hill south of Mesquite, up onto the Mormon Mesa to get across. Again, it's not good for wagons beyond. What's the real little town beyond? There's
Bunkerville?
what?
Bunkerville?
Well, it's even beyond that. There's one more little town down there, about 3 people living. What? Riverside. Riverside has a couple of people that live in it. It's just beyond there where they left the Virgin again. So they did follow the Virgin for a while. All right, and I think she talked about that, didn't you? Well, she left. Okay, she talked about that a little, about that cut. Yes.
The Wolfskill Yawn Party.
Yeah.
Did they go west to Enterprise or Mountain Meadows, or did they go down Ash Creek?
They probably no. They didn't go down Ash Creek. They went west and around the route that goes over Utah Hill. The big problem they had was they played around too much. Well, it wasn't playing around. They were lost. Well, they were lost, but they were exploring, looking. And when they got down the bottom of Salina Canyon, they thought, oh, we just need to go south. But if you go south, what happens if you go south? I mean, think about going south from Salina. What do you run into? You get a Marysville Canyon first. That's a little tricky. All right. Then once you get beyond Marysville Canyon, you get down to Panguage, where you freeze to death on the 4th of July. And I've seen it snow. All right. It's not what's beyond Panguage? Well, Bryce Canyon is over to the left. You got a canyon that goes down. It's rough as. We drive a nice highway. We don't even look and see what's around us. It was awful. And then when you get beyond that, if you miss the cutoff, highway, not 14, what's the highway? Highway 20, the Bear Valley Junction. If you miss Bear Valley Junction, then what happens? I mean, we missed Bear Valley Junction. They went all the way to Panguage. Yes, they end up on Bryan Head, and that's why they came down. That's, there are 2 ways they could have gone from the Panguage Lake, or from Panguage on. And we're, I don't know which one, but they actually went over down Braffitt's Canyon, over the mountain, and it was snowing like hell.
Couldn't have they just...
Okay? They about froze to death before they got to the west side of the mountain.
Couldn't they just go down to Kanab and go...
Oh, you don't understand Kanab either, do you? Once you get past Panguage, even if you got down to, what's that little town by where you go into Zion National Park?
Carmel's Junction.
Mount Carmel.
Yeah.
What is it south of there? Everywhere. Sand dunes.
Yeah.
Sand dunes.
What is it?
Sand dunes. Do you know what the Mormon road through that country was in the 1860s or 70s? They had to leave Kanab, go around by Pipe Spring, come up near Colorado City, a little south of there, then come up through the canyon by our state park over there. What's the coral pink sand dunes? Coral pink sand dunes, and they barely were able to squeeze through that north end, then get over a few sand dunes, and then down over to go that way. Not nice. All right, not nice. Not only not nice, once you get to past that, if you're taking Highway 89 the canyon below where Highway 14 goes across. I mean, have you ever thought about why they put the highways there? It's the only place they could put them and get across. And it took a lot of work to do that. That's why I was describing those 4 places. Below Highway 14, where there is no way to get across the mountain. It wasn't even a good way to get across the mountain. The only way to get across the mountain was the Spanish Trail, the only reasonable way. And let me just tell you one more story. When John C. Fremont came north, he was in a hurry to get up to the Uena area to see fur trappers and understand some of that topography there. And he said, well, I know the Spanish Trail takes off here, and he knew exactly where it was at Paraguna. But he kept going north because he wanted to get further north. Then 6 years later, he regretted making that decision. Because what happened when he came across through Capitol Reef National Park in that area, he got back over to the Salina area and went down to the Circleville. And he didn't realize he needed to go just through one more nasty canyon below Circleville and then catch the Spanish Trail. But he didn't know where the Spanish Trail was because he didn't take it through there. So what did he do? He went west of Circleville. Go to Circleville and go west. All right, but take your Jeep. Okay, you can get there through there with the Jeep, but it's nasty, nasty, nasty country. And then he came out of that canyon where that one inscription, exit 100. I'll tell you where he came out. He came out at exit 100 on I-15. They call it Fremont Wash. Of course, that's too bad because Fremont had absolutely nothing to do with it coming through that the first time. That's also the way the Mormons came when they came down to settle Washington and Iron County. Originally sent their first pioneers down this way. They didn't know where they made what their mistake was is they went in November and it was snowing. And they couldn't see how visible is the trail in the snow. It's not visible in the snow. So you got to go earlier, and they went too late. They left in November and they got into some snow. They ended up doing the same thing Fremont did. They went just a little bit too. Hell, there's no road through there now. Unless you're an elk hunter and you love to get out on a Jeep and travel 3 miles an hour. Okay? You can get through it, but it's tough country to get through. The only places are where, that's why Highway 14 is where it is. Or, not Highway 14, Highway 20. Highway 20 is there because that's the Spanish Trail and it's the only decent way to get through. Now, we cut it, we went further west and even that's pretty tough. If you think about the way you climb up that mountain, then you go down, then you go down this one, then you wiggle around, then you go up another one, and then down another one to get to I-15 now. It's still a tough road to get through. Yeah. That's why they actually followed the Spanish Trail, which is the one that goes from Highway 20 down to Paraguna Canyon, Clear Creek Canyon. That's the way you go. It's the only decent way to go through there. Even Clear Creek isn't as good. The problem when you get on the other side of Clear Creek, where Cove Fort is, what's south of Cove Fort? Oh, it's the most boring part of I-15 there is. It's desert. You got to think about what they've got to work with. This is tough country. All right, I'm sorry I went over and...
Just one other quick question.
Okay.
You mentioned something to see in Bigwater, and I forgot what it was.
There's a Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument Museum there. When Clinton created the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument, he created 5 national monument places to visit, and that was one of them. He wanted this is the first one that was assigned to the BLM. He wanted everybody in the world to know what a great grand place this was, and he's going to show you at every place, because if you have one, like most visitor centers. You have one visitor center for a national monument. If you have one, you have no idea what's in the other part. I mean, you got to remember, now it's 1.9 million acres. All right, you can't describe the Grand Staircase with one national monument. It's so different in every place. You got to have it in different places. So you got one over in the north end, and the two. Escalante's got one, and you got the two. Cannonville has one. Cannonville has one. So I mean, they're everywhere. All right? You got to understand, that's all politics. He wanted to really get even with Utah all right, in 1996. There's no question about it. Clinton finished third in the 1996 election in Utah. Do you understand that? Okay. Who was this? I forgot who this was. Okay. It's a great subject. We could have gone on for another hour. Thank you.